Hello, 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 beautiful souls. Thank you for choosing I Transmute. I'm Coach Nene, and this is the place where we listen to understand, we learn to grow, and we glow from the inside out. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here with your girl today, and for that, I am eternally grateful. So today, I wanted to get on here today and talk to you guys about the importance of being heard and healed. I wanted to talk about it because when we go through the healing process, people really don't get into the details or the importance of why it's important for us to be heard, held, and seen in these places. And we'll kind of dive into that first as far as being seen, heard, and held. Because I remember really going through a lot of tough obstacles and feeling like I was a burden, like I was too much to handle other people, and like my situation was the most traumatic. And even though I did go through some things that were a little inhumane, they were not the most traumatic. I feel like there's a lot of experiences out there that people go through and they're just scared to speak about them. But I believe that those are the things that we should be able to talk about more and be able to express to each other so it could be easier routes for others to heal through. So it's important when we're going through those seasons of healing to be able to have that space to completely fall apart where we feel heard, where we feel seen, and where we could get that love and support. I know for me, starting this journey just throughout my whole life, in the beginning, I was in an environment to where that support wasn't accessible. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing all the time. It just means that it wasn't taught and it was something that wasn't cultivated in your lineage. So when I started to have a little more transparency about that, I was able to get to the nitty gritty and really start to do the work without the guilt, without feeling like a burden, without feeling like, are these people going to be able to tolerate me? Overextending myself in areas where I could just be my authentic self and be loved. But because I went through a lot of experiences, I overextended myself in a lot of places, and that brought a lot of issues too. Just as far as the people pleasing and the over explaining and over apologizing that I once experienced, just to be able to have shelter or, you know, be able to stay with a friend, for a period of time that I was rebelling against, my mother at home because I went through some of these things. So, yes, it's so important to, when we're healing, to be in those spaces that are safe, where we know we're going to be able to have that support and that unconditional love to totally fall apart and be who we completely are. It's just so important, guys, and it's something that people don't really express. They're like, "Oh, just heal, heal, heal," but it's easier said than done because if you're in that same environment, we've all heard the saying, it's almost impossible to heal in the same environment that hurt you. And I know a lot of times when I stepped out of those environments, I was able to see clear pictures. So yes, one of the first steps, and I talk about it in my trauma recovery guide that I have on my pay hip, and it's digital, and I'll also put it in the link below if anybody wants to check it out. And it's just for anybody that is going through this journey and just doesn't have the outlets or the access or the resources. If you know somebody who might be dealing with traumatic experiences or witnessed it, it's just a good tool and guide to be able to share, to help them to even open up the gates to get out of those situations. So yes, when we're healing, it's important that we cultivate those healing and safe spaces. So we'll go ahead and get into the next thing, and that is, why does silence keep us stuck? Hmm. I can say for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but for me, silence kept me stuck again, feeling like a burden. But because I wasn't expressing myself, I wasn't learning how to communicate. we are who we are, and even though we go through our experiences and we don't like them necessarily, they do shape who we are. And in order to learn those new patterns and to begin to look for those new horizons, we have to begin to dig into the depths of what caused this. And it's an amount of accountability that I don't think America has ever truly been ready for, let alone us as humans, because I think sometimes in our minds we have like a perfection mentality about ourselves. So when things fall apart, it's like, what the heck? But to be able to give ourselves that grace and know, hey, I'm human. These things are going to happen. What did I learn from this? How can I strengthen myself to continue to stay on my journey and not become victim to these things, but become victorious and be able to share my story to help someone else come out of those dark days and just those traumatic experiences. So, in healing, you just want to be able to um, speak speak up about it, because I think the longer you stay quiet, the longer your power lies dormant. And for me, my power lied dormant for a long time. And I think when I went through my depression, and there are beautiful things that happen in dark places too, and I'm a living example and a living testimony of that. But when I was going through my depression, it was almost kind of like I was dying and I would never come out of that. But through that depression, it was the first time that I sat down in stillness. It was the first time that I actually had the opportunity to fall apart. Thank you to my husband and my children and my mother and, my siblings and just the beautiful people that were around me when I had experienced the death of my cousin and her son due to domestic violence, someone that was near and dear to me, someone who had experienced all of those traumatic experiences with me beforehand. And, I can go on and on about that and the traumatic bonds and how we learn through just grief and loss and just people and relationships. But it was really traumatic for me. So, really being able to have that space, I think, was important, and having that voice. So, that'll bring me to my next thing, how important it is to have a voice. Oh my God, it's important. When I was really doing the deep diving and healing work, I would call my cousin Michelle. I know she don't mind me shouting her out on here, and I was really going through a lot of copycat energy because for a long time I had people pleasing. Although I knew who I was and I was a beautiful person, I hadn't really set a foundation for my own passions and my own dreams and my own goals. And I was really mad at myself for that. Like, damn, all of this time and you couldn't even set this foundation up for yourself. But how can you preach it and how can you give it? So I knew it was in me, so I began to give myself that grace, and not blame myself for loving and being pure and doing those things, but taking that accountability. Well, self-love, how can you give other people what you don't have? You missed out on one of the first lessons, and that was really to cultivate a relationship not only with God but with myself, and to make sure that I'm always choosing me no matter what, because there were a lot of instances where I didn't choose me, and I pay for that, in my future, in my choices, in my decisions, in my labor, in my harvest. So it's important that we remember that we have to speak up, because how are we going to get out of the situations that we're in if we don't begin to talk about them? And I thought that, we block ourselves because we think that talking is not strength. But vulnerability is a part of strength because it shows that you're ready, you're willing, and you're open, and your heart is open, and you're ready to move forward and really walk your journey. And for me, that was part of the exhilarating and liberating moments for me, to be able to say, hey, I'm okay with this. This is who I was, but look at who I am now, and to really step back and say, damn, I did overcome that. I did overcome that. And to pat myself on the back and to hug myself and to truly show up for myself in ways and forms that I never was taught or never did. And I think that that for me was a shift in itself, to get on this journey, to open Harmony Corner, to be a vessel, to be able to open I Transmute so other people can get on here and, talk about their stories and how they came out and how they to persevere, because that's what it's all about, to be able to walk this journey, to be able to tell our story, to be able to, make people feel good. Not only make people feel good, but make sure that we're feeling good on this journey and we're fulfilling all of our needs and just getting there, right? And so definitely want to make sure we're using our voice in recovery is so important, because some instances that might be all you have. Voice is powerful. And then I know in the instance that I lost my voice, I could feel all of that. You feel numb. You feel like you just don't care. You feel like, hey, there's no point in this anymore. And we don't want to get to those points to where we lose hope. So it's important we keep our voice alive and who we are and build up on that for our strength and our children and their children's children. So just something to remember. Voice. Hold that voice. It's that power in recovery. And I'll never want to lose my voice again. And I encourage every person to use their voice, even if it comes out a little shaky at first, and the throat chakra's a little choked up. Um, Still practice that, because that is definitely where your power lies. What you speak, life and death is in the power of the tongue. We know that what we speak. And I know they used to teach us stick and stones may break your bones and words never hurt you, but that is not true. Words absolutely hurt you. There are things that you remember, and we want to make sure that we're feeding ourselves that positivity, that love. We can hold that tough exterior all day long, but there are certain things that do pierce the soul. So we want to be mindful of that and using that voice and standing firm in that voice. Having to learn boundaries at the big age of 30 all over again, but still giving myself that grace too. It's never too late. Letting yourself know that it's never too late to go back and unlearn and relearn lessons, because as we evolve and learn, we're going to constantly have to be accountable for certain things and strive for that excellence. So we want to continue to hold that powerful voice. And then the next thing I want to really dive into is holding space without fixing. I know this is really big for a lot of professionals, because we get into the coaching or the therapy or the just being a friend, and we often want to put our experiences on our loved ones, but we have to understand that they experience their own journey. So a lot of times it's okay to just be the fly on the wall and listen. Again, that might be the only way of release. Let people discover their own aha moments. We lead, but we don't have to convert people. We can give them a chance to really think about the things that they say out loud. I know a lot of times when I went through my sessions, or just my coaching sessions or my therapy sessions, I had just said those things out loud for the first time. So there's power in saying things out loud. There's power in writing things down. There's power in just speaking on who you are out loud positively. It truly does do something to you when you're constantly getting beat down and getting called names, and it kind of sticks with you for a while. I remember being called bald headed in school. Now I got most of the more hair than a little bit, but we ain't gonna talk about that. We gonna be grateful, and we ain't gonna judge, because like I said, everybody experiences those things. And another thing, to have patience with people, because we're not all supposed to be learning lessons at the same time. And I think that we expect people to get it when we get it, and that's just not how it goes. So a lot of times now I ask myself, wait a minute, who had patience with me on this? Because I know I was difficult once upon a time here. And that really helps me to, give me a second, I need some Vaseline. That really helps me to be more transparent and have more grace and be more forgiving, because that's what it's all about. And the last and final thing, you guys, those daily tasks that help us with that emotional support is very important, and we got to stay consistent with it. And this is a part of the work that they talk about. And I'll give you some things that really helped me meditating. Even if it was just 2 minutes, I remember even just sitting in 2 minutes and had a hard time. So just those 2 minutes of stillness really helped me to redirect my mind, really helped me to sort those thoughts where they needed to go, really helped me to see clarity in my day, and just, help my anxiety and let me know that I can really, make those goals and achieve them in that day. And if I don't get them all done, that's okay, because those little steps matter too, and that's a part of the grace as well. And a good friend, Harley Maxwell, said this. She said, we can make all these plans, but the only ones that'll stick is the one that God allows. And, that's so true. We make these plans and we just have to understand that if they don't fall through, it's okay. It's not a delay. It might be a reroute. God might be protecting you and leading you through other places. So gracefully flow with that. I know journaling was a big thing for me, because it really helped me to identify my behavior patterns. It really helped me to identify those cycles and not to repeat them. And it also helped me to identify the good cycles and the things about me that I forgot. Getting back into my music and, really getting back into school, something that I tremendously love and just have loved since I was a little girl, that I just kind of lost sight of in my grief. But journaling really helped me to get back to finding me and helped me to rediscover myself. Time in nature, really spend time with your children, have those family meetings, spend that quality time. I know for a long time I didn't have a community of women because that wasn't a part of my journey growing up. I went through a lot of things and I learned a lot of things fast and the hard way. So I didn't have a lot of time for friends or to keep those relationships. I was on the go. But I remember how much I missed those relationships with those sisters where I can just call and be like, hey, I need you. Especially after my cousin passed. That's when I really realized, dang, I ain't got no friend. She was my only friend. But really getting back to that supportive community and letting myself know I'm worthy. And hey, I got the discernment to choose the right people. So hey, let's just trust that and not assume and jump to conclusions, and just love people and let people be them. I had to let go of a lot of control, because we want to control things. And it came with my lack of security, in the beginning of my life. And me having to come to grips with that. Where's that? Oh, lack of security. Oh, I didn't have, so I hold on so tight. But it's okay to let go now, because I don't live there anymore. I can let go of that and pursue the things that are really for me. And within that, each day, I was able to do things differently and build more hope and motivation for myself. I'm telling you, and that's why, that saying I put on there all the time, my quote with that little picture of me, action creates motivation. It does. You cannot sit on your ass and expect for things to be done. You have to get up and do the work. I started working out, started doing the gut healing, studying, foods and sugar, and really started getting serious about me. Just a lot of release, a lot of, sorry, I had to come fix my battery instead, it was trying to die. A lot of just getting back to me, loving on me, remembering who I am, and waking up in the morning ugly crying like, I love you, girl, I love you, ain't never going nowhere else again. On my knees, the baths, the nature walks, just the breaking down completely in front of my husband, him like, oh, this is right here, emotional. But the gratitude and the patience that I gained for him, and the love, that he had, because I never experienced that with any other man. They like, oh no, she too much. Well, no, I experienced a lot, and yeah, maybe a little too much, but a lot of love too, so don't ever forget that one, okay? So, just really want to cultivate, I'm goofy, I'm sorry, I'm so goofy. Really want to cultivate those new behaviors and patterns. And, after my 30 days, it got hard. And, I would get inconsistent. 60 days, got a lot better. 90 days, to where it's a couple months, we're in routine. Kids are getting back into routine. Things are getting back in order. I'm getting back in order. I'm gaining my respect. People are learning my boundaries again. Certain people ain't even coming in my space. Thank you, Lord. Because sometimes, just from a kind heart, we don't want to reject or make people feel a certain type of way. So I've come into instances in certain situations where I don't even got to do that. God is handling that for me just in how I show up for myself. So let's just show up for each other. And let's just remember that we all go through different things, different situations, different days. Hold that peace. Hold that patience. Hold that love. Mind your business if you got to. Because sometimes we get in people's business and it's not for us. And now we taking on something that ain't got nothing to do with us. So don't ask. Come in if you're invited. And that's something that I love about my mother. She's one of those mothers that truly, okay, I'm only going to come in if I see it detrimental. And I'm only going to come in if you ask me. And that's something that I kind of keep with my children too. And just within myself and with my friendships. I don't want to, disrespect boundaries, but I do want to be a safe place for people. And so, don't rush in and tell people, oh, I did this and this, how I did this. Let them create their own ways. Because who's to say your way was the right way? You might have came out on top, but it might not have been the right way. So we just want to encourage and love everybody on their journey. And within that, I just want to keep you guys encouraged. I continue to share my links if you guys want to join, collab with me on this show, and I'll be on here frequently. I got so many things coming up. I got a domestic violence segment coming up with some ladies that I'm really, really, really excited to share with you guys about on that journey and how I overcame and how other women overcame. And we just gonna stay on our journey. We gonna keep it lit. You guys, if you want to book sessions with me, www.harmonycornerlifecoaching.com. Come right here on iTransmute to come see me. And you guys have a wonderful and beautiful day. I won't leave y'all like that. Let me go on and leave y'all with my little ancestral chant that my ancestors gave me some time back when I was going through my healing journey. And I think I sung it before, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to sing it again. I'm gonna walk on my journey. I'm gonna talk on my journey. I'm gonna walk on my journey. It's my life, and I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna walk, 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 walk. I'm gonna talk, talk, talk. You better tell them. I'm gonna walk, 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 walk. I'm gonna talk, 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 talk. Toodles. Ah.